So what do you think makes us want to keep going even when we feel discouraged?
Uh,
Then?
well, for what I found really helpful for me is when I started on YouTube. For the first few videos, I was really like focused on like obviously views and comments and that kind of stuff. And it led to me just it feeling like a chore and me just really not having fun with it. So what I focused more on was the craft side of things, and I believe I mentioned this earlier, but like for example, like improving myself. So, like I say, like improving the writing, and every video, I'd always try and do one or two things new from an editing perspective. So, I'd always be developing as a writer, editor, etc. I found when I focused on that, not only did it lead to me getting better and me having fun with it, but it then, of course, led to my videos becoming more popular because they were becoming better. So I find when you just focus more on the and get into the love of the craft and everything, that's when it really like that's what keeps me going is when I'm feeling down is that side of it because it's you feel so good when you're good at something, and
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what makes it work for me.
So let's see what keeps me going even when I feel discouraged. Um, hmm. I think, and I honestly I don't even know if this is like my final answer for this, but right now the mind is sort of like a fatalistic, inevitable mindset, meaning that I feel like at the end of the day, no matter what, whether I'm broke or I'm rich or I'm living in LA or I'm living on the other side of the world, no matter what, I'm always gonna have a drive to want to tell stories. Like that's like been one of the first things I've had since I was a kid. So it's almost like inevitable to me. Like no matter how shitty I am at it or could be at it, whatever. No matter what variables are at play, that constant of wanting to tell stories and characters will always be there. So it's like it's kind of like, well, I didn't even choose this life. It kind of chose me. It's inevitable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I relate to that. So, would you say you're a more introspective writer, or like you said, you like to work with characters? Would you call that extrospective?
What do you mean by like introspective writer?
Like an introspective writer, like writing about yourself.
Oh, um, no. I mean, well, it's interesting you bring that up because I think, and I think there's been various psychologists that have said this, which I kind of agree with, that in every piece of work that a writer produces, there's somewhat of him or herself in it. So, with that being said, I think it's inevitable that maybe parts of my personality or parts of my life experiences will spill out into everything I do, even if it's just like little things here and there. But overall, that's not something I consciously generally think about. Once in a while, I will be like, oh, I don't have a character that, I don't know, has this mannerism I have or something. But generally, for the most part, I don't really think like that. I try and come up with creative new ideas.
That's interesting. You bring up the every piece of writing someone puts out is some kind of reflection of themselves. It makes me think like, what the hell is up with Stephen King? You know.
Yeah.
Say with me, I definitely, yeah, I'd say like a lot of the way I portray a world and stuff is often filtered. I would say it's filtered through my worldview. Obviously, if I'm writing a specific character, I'll filter it through their worldview. But like I said, in terms of like often like for example, if I'm like presenting like a dark alley or something, I'll always often like infuse present that in, like with elements of humor because that's how like I naturally view. I have a dark sense of humor, so I kind of filter it through that. And obviously themes and stuff as well. Like often my thoughts on something. So yeah, I definitely have parts of me in it in that sense. Yeah.
Do you guys, like, question for both of you, do you guys think, because I started thinking about this, do you ever find yourself like literally pulling from, like, I don't know, think of like a friend of yours that you might have, for both of you. Do you ever literally, would you ever do something like literally put that person's name in your stories?
Like their
No.
name or who they are as a person, like what they've done.
Both. Either or.
I
Uh,
wouldn't. I because one of the most fun parts to me is developing original characters and exploring them and seeing what they become and that kind of thing. Because I think one of the reasons I enjoy creating things is kind of that escapism element. That taking myself to these other worlds and whatnot. So I think so incorporating characters which people that I know, I feel I would kind of take it out of it for me, and also kind of limit my creativity as well, because I like with these original characters I can do whatever I want with them. Whereas I feel if I'm writing with a real person, I would kind of always be thinking about what would they do, and I feel that would limit me.
Yeah, you'd almost be working with like a color by numbers at that point.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting exercise. I don't know if I would really run with the idea and flesh it out into this full-on work, but I think it'd be a good like writing exercise to like pick a friend of yours and make them go somewhere in your story, and then try to see what they would do. Try to be their eyes, try to be in their shoes for like a chapter. I don't know. It's an interesting angle to look at it. It's a different way, but overall, I do agree with you, Josh. I much rather create something original. I think.
To be clear, though, or what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I think like certain names, like I would use a name that it's like, hey, like I know someone named Caden, for example. I might just like that name and want to use it, and have it nothing to do with you, Caden.
Right. Funny you say that, because I'm the opposite. I actually almost every character I use, I always use a name that like they have a name that I don't know anyone of, or at least I'm close to in real life, because again that would just remind me of real life, and I feel I would just start writing them.
See, that's where I feel like I disagree with that, because and maybe I should have been more precise, but what I'm saying is I'm not, and maybe for you this is different. But what I am saying is I was talking about just using like little tidbits. Like, oh, let's say I have a friend named Jesse. Let me just name this character Jesse, but it doesn't mean he has to have the characteristics of real life Jesse. Or let's say I don't know, let's say I had a professor that used to always eat Kit Kats on their break. Then maybe, I'll have a character that likes to eat Oreos on break. I just mean little drawing from little things like that, not necessarily.
But that's what I'm saying though, is I think if I did that, I would then just subconsciously associate that name with them, so I would just end up writing them.
Okay, I see pluses and minuses for both of your guys' outlooks on that, because I think like I read director trivia all the time for different movies that I enjoy. And I'm like, oh, cool. They put that character in there because that's what their teacher did when they were little. I was like, oh, that's awesome. But, I do see your side, Josh, too. It's cool when it can appear as it's seamless and it's like not in your face. Like, if that teacher's
like organic.
Yeah, exactly. If that teacher's name is Mr. Richardson, then I don't know, maybe don't name that teacher in the movie or whatever, Mr. Richardson, but the same type of traits you can exhibit, and it'd be like a nice little fun fact. It's like if that teacher, that whoever gave you that push that you needed to become this person that you are, it's like, hey, it's a nice little hat tip to that person in a way.
Yeah, I do like it in that sense. It's like cameos and like minor characters. I think it would be fun in that sense. It's just like my main characters. It's just I don't like to do it.
Right, like you wouldn't take that character and give them an entire journey.
I like it to always be completely original and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, that I understand.
Yeah.
Sure.
We had that was a nice little discussion in the alley, I'd say.
Yeah.
Some homeless people.
I think Josh even mentioned a dark alley.
Yeah.
I worked that in there. Yeah.
Some homeless people walked by and we shook their hands and kept talking. That was cool.
We have coronavirus.
I'm sure we do.
Soon.
Yeah. Too soon. It's now.
Let me go wash my hands.
The pandemic is happening now. I think my response to the question at hand is, no matter what happens, like kind of like what you were saying, Caden, is I know that's something I'll always have, whether I'm rich or poor. But a lot of my life, like I haven't really felt like a specific direction that I'm like headed in, and every day I work to correct that. Every day I work to get better on myself. But no matter where I'm at in the journey, I always have this pen and paper that I can do whatever I want with it, and it gives
Yeah.
me so much satisfaction, and it's definitely defined who I am up to this point in my life, and there's no doubt that it's going to define who I am for my entire life.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's my answer.
I think that was a great answer.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Going off what John said, I guess I also just like it because, he said about that aimless element. I feel that's probably a reason why I gravitate towards it too, is because I think it's, I like always having something that I can always be improving on and whatnot. Like I said, I love the craft side of it, so I'm always having something I know I can be improving on from that side of the brain, I guess. The imagination side and the writing side and everything. That's also something I really like about it.
Yeah, and like friends come and go, relationships come and go, even family members die. Sadly enough, but like you always have this right in front of you whenever you need it. And even if there's an audience for it, if there's not an audience, who cares? You're getting your own personal satisfaction out of it, and that's why we do it in the first place.
Yeah. Nicely put.
Yeah. Hell yeah.